All right. Hello and welcome to today's video. So if you're watching live on Instagram or Facebook and this cuts out at some point, it's during the live. I apologize for that. The internet is not the strongest where I am, but I am recording it and this will go up on YouTube at some point. And also I will post it to my Instagram page and I will post it to my Facebook page so you can watch it after. So if you miss something or if it cuts out or whatever, just know that it's being recorded other places and we will catch what we missed when we get there. Okay, so today we are talking about why the self-love path is the foundation for a new system. Because, again, with everything that's going on in the world right now, and everything that is always going on in the world, because what is happening right now is a loud exclamation of the general systems that we operate in and within in our culture and in kind of global culture and global awareness. And history has a way of repeating itself and repeating itself and repeating itself as it shows us the outcomes of our choices and of our values and of our current state of understanding. And I think it's really important and really valuable for us to start with understanding that the kind of the uproaring and the uprising of violence and of human rights just being completely destroyed and people's humanities being completely robbed from them is part and parcel for how our systems function. And it is a part of how we have all been indoctrinated to see ourselves, to see the world, and to see one another. And we are living in a society and in a world that does not value and does not center humanity. It does not value and it does not center our humanity. It is a world system that functions on profit over people. And we often, as people who have feelings, who have empathy, who have emotion, who have the capacity to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and to feel what someone else is feeling and to empathize with someone else's experience, are looking around and we are horrified at what we are seeing. And I want to first validate that if you are someone who, generally speaking, right, looks out at the world and is horrified with what you see just on a regular basis, that you do not understand how we are functioning the way that we're functioning, why we do the things that we do, why humans do the things we do to one another, that you are someone who has not been able to be completely disconnected from your humanity. And generally speaking, in our society and in our culture, that means you have probably been shamed and you have been blamed and you have been guilted and you have been pathologized and you have been told that there is something wrong with you because you feel deeply, because you have emotions, because you have feelings, because you are connected to your body, and because you are not able to fully disconnect from your sense of, like I say, just feeling. And in our culture, in order to succeed, in order to dominate and to have success the way that our culture defines success, you have to be disconnected from your humanity. There's simply no two ways around it. And so, again, we are going to continue to see what horrible things we're seeing now, round and round and round, over and over and over again, in all sorts of different contexts and in all sorts of different ways. Because again, it's showing us where our current value systems are as a humanity and how they are actually working out. Okay? So I first and foremost, again, want to validate that if you are looking out at the world right now and you are feeling horrified, that you are feeling a lot of things, that you feel confused, that you feel overwhelmed, that you don't know how to process this, that you are feeling like, how can this possibly be happening? You don't understand how people can be functioning this way. And if there's a feeling of not being in control and not knowing how to make it better and not knowing how to fix it and being overwhelmed, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. Please don't be ashamed of yourself. And again, this is something that you may be feeling, generally speaking, in your life. Because, again, there's always something to look at in terms of people being robbed of their humanity based on how our systems function. And if that doesn't break your heart, if that doesn't overwhelm you, if that doesn't make you feel something, yeah, I would say that's more of a pathology than when it does. But again, in our culture and in our systems and in our ways of being, we are often guided to believe that our humanity and our feelings and our confusion and the depression and the anxiety and all the things that come up when we're looking at our world systems and the outcomes that come from those world systems as being something wrong with us. And this is indoctrination, okay? This is not reality. And that's why I teach what I teach. Because the reality is, this self-love path that we are on, this path of learning how to have compassion for ourselves, how to witness our emotions, how to feel our bodies, how to move past the shame and the guilt. Because here's the thing. The way we are convinced, the way we are indoctrinated into not being connected to our humanity, into not being connected to one another, to not being connected to our own feelings, to not being connected to what's happening inside of ourselves, to not being connected to what's happening in our communities around us, and to not seeing, again, the systems that we're functioning in and how destructive they are, is that we are trained to blame and shame and guilt ourselves. We are trained in the spirituality, self-help, and personal growth world to be in a constant state of navel gazing and trying to cleanse ourselves and improve ourselves and change ourselves and fix ourselves so that we can function within the system. Okay? We're constantly being told that if we have anxiety or depression, or if we have strong emotion, like if we can't go out and work that 9 to 5 and socialize how we're supposed to socialize and be cutthroat and do all of these things that society tells us that we have to do and that we have to be in order to be good enough, that there's something wrong with us. Okay, like that we're constantly told that we are broken and we are shameful and we are not good enough. And that is the main way that we are indoctrinated out of seeing how our systems actually function, why they are not healthy, why they are not going to work if we want to sustain ourselves as a humanity. And it keeps us continually striving to fix ourselves so that we can fit in, instead of understanding what's wrong with the system and rebelling against the system and demanding a new system and being a part of a new system. It keeps us from pulling our efforts out, pulling our attention out, pulling our participation out of these systems that are harmful, that are out of alignment with what is truly right and good for our humanity. Right? It keeps us pushing for these systems and continuing to be involved in these systems. Instead of finding new ways. And again, I'm sorry if my internet is cutting out. I know the connection is just not very strong. Hopefully it's a little bit better here. I'll just Okay, is that a little bit better? If someone can let me know, can you hear me on Instagram? Yeah. Finding a new way is going to require that we first reconnect with our humanity, because it is through our feelings. Good, thank you. It is through our feelings. It is through our emotion. It is through our capacity to connect with empathy, to connect with emotion, to connect with feeling, that we are going to be able to figure out how to build something better than what we have. Because again, first and foremost, we cannot become not something. A lot of people in our spirituality and our self-help world today are telling us that we can change and fix the systems that we have by going back to how things used to be. There is a lot of people who talk about, okay, thank you. Thanks. My sister just letting me know that it's better now, so that's good. Thank you. There are a lot of people who talk about how we are going to go back to a time before we had all these things that we have, and that this is going to be the way that we change our society, and that we find something good, and that we find something better. And I totally understand the desire to believe that we've had it as a humanity figured out before, that we had a way of being that worked, and that we just went away from it for no reason, and that we need to just go back to it. And what we need to understand is that there are incredibly valuable things, yes, in the way that indigenous cultures used to live their life. There are incredibly valuable things in looking at our history and looking at the ways we used to operate and the ways that some cultures still operate in true community with one another. We can absolutely understand that there are examples we can follow of ways of being. There are examples we can follow of ways of being that show us what actual community looks like. What it looks like to understand that to be in this constant state of competition, which is, again, the root of the evil that we see in the world right now. This constant living for ourselves, this constant competition, this constant you need to fight for yourself, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Be independent. Be as successful as you need to be. Take what you want for yourself. That mindset that is in spirituality and self-help and personal growth and is decorated as spirituality. It's decorated as abundance. It's decorated as when you're living your purpose and you're doing what you should be doing, you're going to be abundant and you're going to have all these things and the universe has your back and it's going to bless you with all this shit that you want. That this mindset of every man for himself, take as much as you can, is a huge part of the problem. It is not the solution. That these other cultures that have demonstrated what it looks like for a community to find their enough, for everyone to be supported by the community, so that everyone gets their needs met to the best of the community's ability, so that everyone is included to the best of the community's ability, is actually a far more sustainable and successful way of being than the way we have now. And what we are seeing play out on the global stage over and over and over and over and over again is what it looks like when a humanity has been separated from their humanity. When a culture, when an entire globe has been separated from our capacity to feel, to be in our bodies, and to look at actual outcome beyond the immediate outcome that we are experiencing as an individual. And again, I don't want anyone to feel blame or shame or guilt about functioning in our societies. Because again, nobody who is alive today invented our systems. No one who is alive today came up with what we have right now. This anti-humane system. This anti-humane way of being started a long time ago. And it's been building and building and building and building and building and building for hundreds of years. As we have become increasingly a global society, as we have become increasingly colonial, and people have taken more and more and more, and the model of success, again, that we as a humanity have been shaping ourselves around, has been that of dominance and control, and taking as much for ourselves as we can. We have watched what this is doing. We have watched what this is creating. And what we are seeing right now is another example of what it looks like when we live for profit and power and dominance over people. And we are just going to continue to see this over and over and over again in different ways until we change our value systems. Until we change the foundations for how we look at what success is, and until we change our foundations for how we look at what is valuable and what is worth our time and what is not. And again, I believe this is going to start with us needing to deconstruct within ourselves. We need to take on the path of self-love, which is not the path of selfishness and the path of trying to manifest abundance and the path of trying to get as much for yourself and live your spiritual purpose and right? We don't want to be caught up in the current self-help, navel-gazing, false spirituality. And again, okay, like in this video, I'm kind of mask off right now. And I just feel like I'm not mincing my words as much as I usually do. And again, I don't want to make anyone feel that they are wrong or bad or shameful or doing something wrong, because again, we live in a culture that is so heavily indoctrinating that I don't blame anybody. I don't blame anybody for being in this state of thinking you're on a spiritual path by trying to manifest as much for yourself as you possibly can. And especially when we live in this world of such manufactured discontent, because this is a huge part of, again, how we are manipulated into doing these things. We live in a culture that is so hyper individualistic, that is so incredibly all about your freedom and your rights and your happiness are going to come from your selfishness. Like, that is the bottom line message, that there is no one here for you. We are not here for you. Society is not here for you unless you live up to expectation, unless you look how you're supposed to look, unless you function how you're supposed to function. And don't ever forget that you could be cast aside and left out and made unsafe and be part of a culture war, or you can be literally have your humanity just completely disregarded at any moment, so long as you're not fitting in and you're not doing what you should be doing according to culture. And it keeps us in this perpetual state of, again, being locked down in our emotions, being afraid, thinking we need to just live for ourselves. So I don't blame anyone for this. Even spiritual and self-help people who really think they're on a spiritual and self-help path and instead they're just like manifesting millions of dollars by robbing people in their MLM downlines. Like, I get it. Right? Everyone is just trying to survive. We are all trying to survive in this system that has no regard for our humanity. So it is not your fault. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not a bad person. This is why, again, I say the self-love path is the foundation, because we need to be able to first see how these systems are destroying us individually, how they are disconnecting us from our humanity, how they are disconnecting us from our emotions, how they are disconnecting us from our feelings, how they are convincing us that our lack of capacity to feel good in the system. So our anxiety, our depression, our social anxiety, our inability to work the way we're supposed to work, our inability to socialize the way we're supposed to socialize, our whatever, right? We're all convinced that that's a pathology, and we all now need therapy so that we can regulate and then go out and live a normal life again. And what I'm saying is, okay, to a degree, but also, if everyone needs fucking therapy, maybe there's something wrong with how we're doing things. Maybe it's not that we're all just broken and need to regulate. Maybe it's that we are dysregulated because we are responding correctly to an out of sync system. What if that? What if we are responding in a completely, absolutely human way to an anti-humane system? And it's not that we all just need to regulate and find tools to ground ourselves. And again, even the fact that like that is behind a paywall, that finding safety and finding security in so many ways requires that you already live in a place in society where you can feel like you're not going to be antagonized. And that's not everyone. Like, these tools and these practices are not equitable in generally speaking. Because when you literally don't know where your next meal is coming from, because the system doesn't support you, you regulate all you want, you're not going to feel safe. You see what I'm saying here? So we are living in this system of constant competition and constant antagonism. And constantly, like, again, if you don't literally not have enough, You're being told that you are not enough. This constant manufactured discontent, especially in the Western world, where we have so many resources and so much technology and so much capacity to create a society where everyone has basic needs met, and we don't have to fight for that shit. But instead, what do? We put all that money into frickin' the military so that we can be dominant on the world stage. And then we wonder why people don't trust the government and don't trust institutions. And sometimes institutions and governments are correct and no one follows them. And then we have this whole other side of the coin, like the health and wellness conspiracy world, where of course, right, it's equal grifting and it's equal just don't buy pharmaceuticals, buy my supplements. But it looks and sounds different to us. And we don't know where to go. We don't know what to do. Because everywhere we turn, the system is the system. Individuality, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, dominance, disconnect from your humanity. This is why we are suffering. This is why we see what we are seeing right now. And this is why we continue to see it in a million different forms over and over and over again. I bet you, no matter what time you watch this video, because I'm not speaking directly to what's happening, you are going to be able to look at the world and think I'm talking about current events. Because there is always something happening that shows that we are in a state of humans destroying humans. Humans taking away other humans' humanity. Because that's the system. This is not an event. Yeah? This is how we do things. And it's not going to work. We're not going to sustain ourselves if we keep going this way. And again, it boils down to a human race that is disconnected from their humanity. So what do I mean by that? What does it mean to be disconnected from our humanity? It means we are not connected to our emotions. It means we don't have emotional intelligence. We don't understand what our emotions are saying, why they are coming up the way they're coming up, why we're reacting, responding the way we're responding. And our emotions have been pathologized, overly pathologized, to the point of if you feel things, that's a problem. If you feel something negative, that's a problem with you that needs to be fixed with you. No one is talking about how you might be responding appropriately to horrible things. You might be feeling what you're feeling because the system you're trying to operate within feels bad because it's out of alignment with how our humanity functions. In our system, if you can't get along with how things work, the narrative is there's something wrong with you. If you don't feel good doing what everyone else is doing, there's something wrong with you. That is disconnection from our humanity. Reconnection to our humanity is, I feel something, why? Shutting down our inner guidance, exactly. Everyone comes to me and it's like, how do I develop my intuition? And I'm like, I don't know that you actually want to know that, because your intuition is you acknowledging how you actually feel about what is going on in your life and what you're trying to participate in and what you're trying to do. And for most of us, when we start to access our intuition, we're not going to get a whole bunch of messages about what we should do. It's going to be, yeah, this hurts, this hurts, this hurts, this hurts, this sucks, oh my God. And again, right? Like, we are not given alternatives. We are not given that there are other ways of life and there are other ways of functioning and other ways of doing things that might actually be better than what we have. It's if you can't get along with what everyone else is doing, fix yourself. Change yourself. You are broken. So we have all of these people in the self-help and the spirituality, personal growth, therapy world who feel like shit. That's their intuition talking to them. But instead of being like, okay, why does this hurt? What is wrong with the way we're doing things? Maybe it's the system that needs to be questioned, not you. It's, how do we fix you? How do we regulate you? How do we get rid of your depression? How do we get rid of your anxiety? Because what you're feeling is showing us that you're broken. The fact that you are feeling something that is negative about how things are is a reflection of your brokenness. It's a reflection of your inability to be normal and to function and to be healthy. And this is a huge part of what's keeping us stuck in these cycles. These cycles that are anti-humane and that lead to the things that we're seeing right now over and over and over again. It's how things are is fine. How things are is how they should be. We have it all figured out. And if you don't feel good, you are broken. There is something wrong with you. You need to be fixed. And we're seeing this, I think, more and more and more with our children. The younger generations are having so much more anxiety and depression than we've ever seen. And I don't think it's just because they're weak or because we're parenting wrong. It's because this escalation of our system over the generations has gotten to a point of like, our kids are being born and we're not able to indoctrinate them fast enough, to shut down their humanity fast enough, to usher them into how things should be. They're coming out and they're like, no, I'm not even going to try. I'm not going to go. No. It's too hard. It's too painful. It doesn't work. It doesn't feel good. And we need to listen to that. We need them because, again, they're showing us our normal, the water we're swimming in, that's poisonous and toxic. That to us, it's normal because it's always been that way. This is how we do things. But in real reality, it's poisoning us. This next generation is like the canary in the coal mine. They're literally saying, like, we can't do this. This doesn't work. It doesn't feel good. So reconnecting to our humanity is first about, again, this is why in my mystery school, there's a huge section on shame and guilt. Because this is the filter that stops us from being able to see what is out of alignment with what we're doing and to figure out how to make something better. When we are continually able to be convinced that we are broken for feeling, that we are broken for not being able to get along in the system, to be individualistic, to be cutthroat, to be independent, to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, that there is some flaw in you. And again, like so many of us just grew up being constantly told that who and what we were was not okay. Especially if you were someone who was sensitive or, right? You had feelings. You were depressed, you were anxious, you were all of these things as a child growing up. You were an old soul. Like, no, you were just a human who was connected to your humanity. And the system was like, that is not going to work. You can't be like that. You can't be like that and sustain yourself. Are we hearing what I'm saying here? So a lot of us weren't able to be disconnected from our humanity completely. So now we're just living lives where we're constantly feeling like we're broken and we're shameful and we're bad and we're wrong because we can't eat how everyone else eats, and we can't just not see what we're seeing, and we can't not feel what we're feeling. And so we're constantly in this state of trying to fix ourselves and change ourselves. And at the same time, again, we may be starting to see the corruption in the system. And then we're being pulled into conspiracy theory, and we're being pulled into grift after grift after grift of spiritual teacher who says, I can teach you how to not feel this. I can teach you how to transcend this. I can teach you how to heal this. The next, regulation workshop, the next blah, blah, blah. And no one is saying, okay, no, maybe you are responding correctly to a system that's fucked up. And that is what we need to actually hear. That is what we need to acknowledge. We need to get past the shame and the guilt if we're gonna be able to create a new system. Because so many of us who feel it, who know it, who see it, are constantly then driven back into navel gazing and self-help and personal growth and trying to improve ourselves and blaming ourselves and scapegoating ourselves, instead of being able to see, no, this is what's wrong and here's my power to change it, right? So many of us, even right now, like we're looking around and we're like, where are the people and why aren't we doing more about it? And it's like, because we're all so afraid already. We're all so caught up in our own shit and our own trying to fix ourselves and our own trying to keep our heads above water. We're all exhausted and overwhelmed all the time. So then when something like this happens, people go silent. People get overwhelmed. People don't engage because they don't know what to do. They're already so scared and so overwhelmed and so exhausted that they don't know how to engage, right? Like they don't know how to do it for themselves, let alone doing it for anyone else. So that's why, again, this self-love path is the foundation for creating something new. Because when we are able to be that person for ourselves, when we are able to start to say, no, I'm reacting and responding how I'm reacting and responding for a reason. Maybe humanity doesn't have it all figured out. Maybe the system isn't how it's supposed to be. Maybe I'm not broken for not being able to get on and get along. Maybe there's something more here. When we can get past the shame and the guilt of our caregivers and society forever telling us this is what's wrong about you, this is what's bad about you, this is what's not enough about you, this is what's too much about you, here's all the things you need to fix about yourself so that you can fit in and that you can be liked by whatever culture that you were raised in. If we can transcend that, we can start to acknowledge, okay, no, there's a reason I'm responding the way that I'm responding. There's a reason I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling. And it's not because I suck. And it's not because I'm broken. And it's not because I'm weak. And it's not because there's something wrong with me. It's because there's something wrong with the system I'm trying to force myself into. And that's what needs to be looked at. And that's what needs to be spoken to. And that's what needs to be understood. And then when we can start to do that, when we can start to be on our own side, when we can start to be on our own side, when culture tries to manipulate us into feeling like shit about ourselves, we can be able to not go there, to be like, no, I'm not going to participate in that. I'm not going to be in that. I'm going to start to live my life in ways that actually support my humanity. So where I can, I don't take more than I need. It's not about abundance. It's about finding my enough and staying there. It's about figuring out who my community is, online, in real life, the person at the checkout counter, just the people around me. How do I start to be the kind of person who interacts with the people around me like their humanity matters? So I'm not in a rush all the time. I'm not just trying to get from one place to the other. I'm not just seeing people as either someone who's going to help me or someone who's in my way. But we start to see other people as other people who exist and have the right to exist and have the right to safety and who are having a different experience than us. And we get curious about them the way we're curious about ourselves. We start to be these kinds of people. And then when something explodes on the world stage, we then will be able to say, okay, whose humanity is being robbed here? How do I stand for that humanity? Where is my capacity? In whatever it is, my voice, my finances, my body, my time. Because I have left over. Because I'm not constantly driving myself with my spiritual practices and everything else that I'm doing for more, and self-fixing. Where we will have the capacity to have empathy instead of being overwhelmed and shutting down and running away, or being afraid of saying anything or doing anything because we don't want to be disliked. This isn't going to work. We can't keep going this way if we want anything different. And like I said, we now live in a world where we are so connected and we are shown so much more, and the communities that we live in are so much bigger than they've ever been. So again, like I said, even though we can take examples and we can take understandings from indigenous cultures and from the past and how communities have functioned historically in ways that were healthy, there's not a golden age to return to, because we've changed. We're different. We have different technology, we have different experiences, we have different connections now. We are not going to find our way forward and a new system by going back to anything that we had. Because what we have now has never been experienced before. We are now a global society, and that's never happened before. So there isn't a thing we can return to. And a global society is going to require a hell of a lot more empathy and a hell of a lot more capacity to see an other as ourselves than we've ever had to have before. When our communities were isolated and we had small communities and insular communities, that was so much easier to find harmony, because we all looked the same and we all came from the same culture and we were all, right? Like living and working together. We had same ideas, same cultures, same values. Now we live in a world where we are interacting on a daily basis with people who have completely opposite worldviews to us, completely different experiences to us. And in order to make peace in that, we have to be able to empathize with another person. We have to be able to understand that their experience is not our experience. And we have to be able to, again, we do this work to learn how to validate our own experience. Because so many of us have had our experience invalidated. We have lived our entire life having everyone tell us that what we're feeling and what we're thinking and what we're experiencing isn't real, it's not legitimate, it's not valid, because it doesn't align with what everyone else is going through. So again, this self-love path, we learn it inside first. We learn how to validate our own experience. We learn how to validate our own emotions. We learn how to have emotional intelligence. These skills that we build inside of ourselves then become skills we have and that we can apply to our community, which is now a global community. We understand how to validate an experience. We understand how to validate someone else's emotion. We understand how to look at someone else's humanity. We understand how to have compassion and curiosity for how people are behaving and how they got here. Because we've done that for ourselves, right? So this is where the navel gazing is actually helpful. There are things and practices that we are going to do in our inner world that are vital for changing things on the outside. And there are internal practices and navel gazing and spirituality and self-help that distract us and just keep us on this ever-present manufactured discontent. I'm trying to get rid of my emotions. I'm trying to transcend my childhood trauma. I'm trying to get rid of all of these things. I'm trying to perfect myself. I'm trying to purify myself. I'm trying to cleanse myself into nothing. That's where what is the point of this? It's just more of the system. You are the problem. Cleanse yourself, fix yourself, get rid of yourself enough so that you can function how everyone else is functioning. That is not effective. The true spiritual path, in my opinion, is again, first understanding your own humanity. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you feeling what you're feeling? What has your experience been? Learning to validate yourself, learning to validate your emotions, learning to say, okay, I'm not going to participate in that anymore, or I am going to start to participate in this, even though it is not what my culture or my family or my friends or anyone around me agrees with or thinks is right or thinks is real, because it's real and it's valid to me. We start to connect to our own humanity. We start to have empathy for ourselves, compassion and curiosity. We start to look at our childhood trauma, right? And how we were indoctrinated about how we should be versus how we actually are. All that shame and that guilt, we process it. We start to realize, okay, whoa, I'm never going to be the person my family wanted me to be. I'm never going to be the person that can fit into culture and society the way that culture and society functions. We learn to love and accept ourselves for that. We learn to find our enough. We learn to find ways of living that actually work for us. And then again, like I said, these skills then become how we treat everyone else. It starts with us, but it doesn't stop with us. It can't stop with us. And it won't. There is no way. You cannot connect to your own humanity and your own feelings for yourself without it extending out beyond you. It is not possible. I guarantee you. And then, like I said, this is what is going to become the foundation for a people group who start to say, okay, this is what it actually is. It's not a conspiracy. There aren't lizards in the government. It's people functioning from a base of fear, because I still believe that. The people who are dominating in our culture today are not the wisest among us. They're not the smartest. They're not the most capable. They're not the most deserving. They are the most afraid. And they are operating from a place of the only way to make myself safe is to dominate. They have been so thoroughly disconnected from their humanity. They have been so thoroughly disconnected from their feelings and their emotions and their bodies from their whole life that they are capable of doing what they are doing. Or they have been so deeply traumatized, like generations of trauma, of not being safe, of being antagonized, that they have become the kind of adults that say, scorched earth. I'm going to burn it all down because it's the only way. They were taught that. They are reflecting a system. when you are traumatized enough, when your humanity is robbed from you enough, you're gonna fight back. And it doesn't make it okay. It does not make it okay. It does not make it okay. But it makes sense. And if we don't want to see that, we need different systems. We need different foundations. Dominance is not the way. Abundance is not the way. Navel gazing is not the way. This manufactured discontent is not the way. But again, right? Albert Einstein said, we can't create a new system with the same thinking that built the old one. We can't keep our current values of dominance and success being abundance and taking as much for ourselves as we can, and individuality and pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps and taking as much for yourself, wealth, luxury, all this shit. The only reason we crave for that stuff is because we don't have community safety. We're hungry ghosts for attention and for things and for escape and for all of this stuff because our systems are draining the shit out of us. Because we don't have friends. We don't have real connection, right? Even just the idea of like, you're supposed to partner up and then be satisfied with your partner. Like, it's robbing us. Isolation is the problem. And we're drowning in it. We're literally drowning in it. And we're watching what that looks like. This is what it looks like. This is what foundations of fear look like. When the spiritual people say that we are living in fear, this is true. This is what this looks like. To live in fear is to see everyone as an enemy, as competition. And it's to erase the humanity of anyone who doesn't side with you. We cannot find a new way, a better way, a healthy way, so long as that's our mindset. So like I said, this is why I teach what I teach. This is why this is the only thing I teach over and over and over and over and over again. You are not shameful. You are not bad. You are not guilty. What is actually happening inside of you? What do you actually need? We need to get beyond the shame and the guilt. You're not broken. Your desire for something better is not a flaw in you. Self-help, personal growth, spirituality that teaches you to just go for more for yourself, or that teaches you to navel gaze, is not solving the problem. It is the problem. It is the system. That is capitalism with feathers and crystals. It's not it. I don't care about the law of attraction. I don't care. It's like it's irrelevant. Because it has nothing to do with what we need to be doing. What is relevant is, how are we reconnecting to our humanity? Who does this serve, and why, and how? Who is served by you continually blaming and shaming and guilting and abandoning yourself? Because it's not you. Who is served by that? Who is served by making sure that when something horrible happens on the world stage, you are too overwhelmed to do anything about it? That's what we're seeing right now. A whole bunch of people who are so overwhelmed with the manufactured discontent of our systems that when something horrible happens on the world stage, we don't know how to react. We don't know how to respond. We don't know what to do. We don't have tools for it. And that's by design, so that the systems can keep functioning. So like I said, what do we do? What do we do? We learn to connect to our own humanity. You are not broken. Your emotions are so important. Your feelings are important. Your experience is valid. Learning how to get past your shame and your guilt so you can understand what you're actually feeling, what you actually want, what you actually need, is then going to help you understand that on a global scale. What you learn for yourself and what you learn about yourself, you are going to be able to apply to everyone else and everything else. Because there is no separation between what your humanity needs and what everyone else's humanity needs. It looks a little different on all of us, but it's different, right? But it's ultimately the same. What we want is a system of equity. And we are not going to be able to create that until we connect with our humanity, which is hard, because then we're going to be connecting with grief. We're going to be connecting with trauma. We're going to be connecting with heavy, hard, dark emotions, because we live on a planet of heavy, hard, dark shit. And we have all had heavy, dark, shitty experiences. And going through that process of validating yourself and grieving that and being held and seen and loved and going to therapy and like going through the mystery school, like doing all this stuff, working one-on-one with someone, with me, with other people, like that's a big part of it. And then you're going to be the kind of person who can say, okay, I'm going to change how I function as a human within our systems. And you are then a life that is voting for something different. You are showing us a new way. Because that's, again, we're not going to intellectualize a new way. We're going to do a new way. We have to do it. We have to be it. We have to live it. We have to show it. We can't tell people about it. I can't tell you how to live your life. I can give you tools to connect to your humanity so you figure out what kind of life actually feels good for you. And you're going to start to realize that what actually feels good for you is beneficial for all of us. Your empathy, your connection to your feelings is going to make it so that you start to feel, okay, this does not feel good. This does feel good. Everyone else is doing this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to do this new thing, and we're going to show how to live a different life. We're not going to tell. We have to build a new system by being it first. Okay. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? This is a reflection of our current value systems that none of us chose. But we need to wake up to it, and we need to unchoose it, and we need to choose something different. We can't become not something, and we can't just go backwards. We have to move forward. So what is this going to look like? Well, first, again, it's going to start with you doing that inner work, the actual real inner work of getting past your shame and your guilt and figuring out who you are and what feels good to you and what doesn't feel good to you, and accepting that and building a life around that. And then as you do this, your empathy, your humanity, you acknowledging your emotions and feelings and what like goes beyond your intellect and just what do I need to do to fit in, that's going to help you figure out what you can do to help to build a new society. And then you're just going to be different on a day-to-day basis. The way that you operate will be different than how everyone else operates. And that's how we build a new system. We be it. We be the new system. Okay? Okay. So like I said, This is no one's fault. Please don't feel guilty. No one chose this system. You were born into it. You were indoctrinated into it. That's why shame and guilt, again, when we start to realize how we're participating in it, we have to have enough self-love to be like, yeah, but okay, I didn't choose it. I'm not horrible. I'm not bad. I'm not wrong. I'm not shameful. We can't go into shame and guilt. We can't go into defense. We have to be able to see it and admit it and say, okay, not my fault, but what can I do differently now? How can I change? And change doesn't mean I was horrible, wrong, and bad, shameful before. It means I learned something. And that's okay. It's okay to change and grow without feeling like shit about who you were. We have to have that self-love. That's, again, the foundation of this. We gotta be able to say, okay, I was a part of the old system. I was participating. Not my fault, but I can change. We got to be able to hold both of these things at the same time. Okay, this is real. This is what it looks like in real life. This is not theory. If we want something different than what we're seeing right now, these are the foundations. Okay. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. I hope you got something out of it. It's devastating, and it should be devastating. If you are feeling devastated, that's good, that's healthy. Lean into that. Okay? You're worthy, you're good enough. And yeah, I'll see you again soon, okay?